Hello, you weirdos. Jim here, and welcome back to the Weird Science Comics YouTube channel, where we have some breaking news. I wish it was better news, especially for Phillip Kenny Johnson fans. And if you have been watching some videos on the channel this week, I hope that you appreciate that there's more videos coming out, right? There's one a week that's more coming out, actually. I mean, I should hit the deal there. Hey, everybody. But if you are a Phillip Kenny Johnson fan and have been watching, I had a video about how the sales rankings came out, and Phillip Kenny Johnson's really, really good book, The Batman and Robin, is not ranked well. It didn't even crack the top 100, and I had a video about why I thought it should have started with the new number one and given some people an opportunity to realize something new had started and jump on. Now, in the meantime, here we are today, and we have some more Phillip Kenny Johnson news, and it is that the Adventures of Superman, the Book of El, you know, that book that's going to have all those characters from the future state-ish, it's canceled, but it should be resolicited later on in the year. As we go through this, I will give you some theories I've heard and then some theories that I might have because I'm a learned fella. But in the meantime, I did end up talking to a lot of people who are really looking forward to this book. I'm sure they'll be upset about this, but maybe hinge on the deal of, please, have it come out later, because sometimes these things happen where something they say will be resolicited never is, but a lot of times it is. So we'll see. Now, in the meantime, when I did have that deal about not only just Phillip Kenny Johnson not getting a new number one on Batman and Robin, but also Chris Condon not getting a new number one on Green Arrow. And by the way, I will link to that video at the end here. I did talk to a bunch of people in the comments, which I tried to do. And one guy, Jeff, he ended up saying, because I did say, the beloved creator, Phillip Kenny Johnson, the writer everybody loves. And he said, I think you're overselling Phillip Kenny Johnson. And this is the thing. I understand that not everybody likes everybody. And I also understand that at DC, Phillip Kenny Johnson is a great seller. The books that he's done, including now that Batman and Robin, they don't sell great. And that's kind of the reason he's not on Action Comics either. But the idea of it is, that's why I thought he needed that number one. So I wanted to reiterate the idea, or at least explain myself. I didn't mean that he sells 200,000, copies each time an issue comes out. I just never hear a lot of people bitching about him. And that's the lay of the land now. That's why I do want to be more positive in 2025, because the minute that you think of a writer, I think you think right away of, oh, do people hate them? Did they say this on Twitter? Did they do that? And it gets really grating. It wears me down. So what I'm saying is, I think he's a good writer. I don't think that he has quite the big enough base right now to be a guy who they can put him on any book and go. But this is something that people did like when it came out. So we have to figure out, why is this the play here? And again, just a shout out to Jeff. I'm not the biggest Phillip Kenny Johnson fan myself. There's a lot of bigger fans. I like to support him because he seems like a decent guy, but I also like to support good books, and that Batman and Robin is damn good. So I'll support that till the cows come home, then come back again, then come home, whatever. I will do that. But if you had listened to our podcast, again, link in the show notes, when we talked about even the War World saga, let alone that War Journal book, the whole Olgrun stuff that went over my head, I thought that he meanders a bit, even in The Incredible Hulk over at Marvel. I think that he ended up doing his deal. He likes to deep dive into lore. He likes to tell, prequel things. He likes to really expand stuff, which is great. The problem is a lot of times, including, I think, by the time the whole Action Comics run ended and War World saga ended, he needed a couple more issues, but he didn't get them because it wasn't selling, and it ends up, he moves along. So this whole thing, though, with the Book of El, this was going to be, hey, that future state, super family, the House of El, pretty cool. But it also is about Olgrun. And that's something that I could care less if I ever hear that word again. I know that might upset people who really like the War World saga, but boy, that is something also where if you start talking that stuff, this book becomes impenetrable for newer readers in my mind. So that might be one of the things. And there is a theory by me that will come up in a minute. But before we go on to that, I'm going to read the solicit for that first issue. That, unfortunately, like I said, they ended up getting a hold of retailers and pulling back, saying, we're not taking any more orders. We'll resolicit later. But it did get solicited for March. It's Adventures of Superman, the Book of L, #1, written by Phillip Kennedy Johnson, art and cover by Scott Godlewski. And here we go. Superman returns. Oh, my, see? Fan favorite Future State House of L creators, Phillip Kennedy Johnson and Scott Godlewski, reunite for Adventures of Superman, Book of L. As the super family settles into a well-earned time of peace, a powerful ally turned enemy invades Earth with an army at his back and the god aspect of Olgrun, mad god of the first world. See, I'm groaning a bit. When even the super family lacks the power to stop him, Superman is sent against his will to a place even he's never been, where he'll find allies he could never have expected, concluding the events of Future State and Phillip Kennedy Johnson's Action Comics. The Superman event of 1,000 lifetimes begins here. So there's two big things, obviously, that this book is going to be about. It's going to have that House of L, the future characters that we saw in Future State. And when that came out, to me, I didn't love it. I thought it looked cool. I thought it had a cool aspect, but there wasn't a lot of meat and cheese to the story. It was, to me, all wow factor. It was a lot of fan service of, oh, look what would happen. And really, the whole play of this is Future State rubbed a lot of people wrong. If you weren't around or if you don't remember, even if you remember, we come out of Death Metal by Scott Snyder. And then we have 2 months of Future State where they had just fired Dan Didio. And what it felt like at the time, and still does, they did not have a plan. I mean, the big plan was, let's fire Dan Didio. And when they did, and he walked out the door, they thought, okay, what do we do next? And everybody was looking at everybody else with their hands in their pocket, twiddling their thumbs even. They didn't have an idea. So it seemed like what they did was get the ideas that were around that would have been the 5G, that was what we were going to end up having, and then just kind of making them into this what if future time deal for 2 months while they try to maybe not regroup, but group and come up with some ideas going forward. If you remember, once the Future State in it, then we had Infinite Frontier, then we did this, and a lot of stuff got presented, pulled back, thrown away, re-presented later. It was a wreck. And they wanted to get rid of Dan Didio, and I don't think they had a plan themselves to really go forward, and it took some time. I think they're doing well now, but this is now years ago, and it's been a bit of a mess. But that not here nor thou. The whole idea of this, though, is I ended up, and what I said was I didn't really love that House of L stuff. So when this was announced and they said, oh, the Adventures of Superman, the Book of L, you would have thought, oh, Jimmy Boy here, he wouldn't care about that. He just said that he didn't like that. No. Oh, contraire, mon frere. I actually was looking forward to it because I thought maybe we would get some of the meat and cheese that we didn't get in those 2 issues. We have more of time to go with this, and we'll figure out how this went. Now, again, when I originally read the Solicit and it said the, Olgrun stuff, I'm telling you, you start talking about that and my eyes get glassy. Not the sexy way. They just get glad because it all goes over my head. I thought that in the War World saga that everybody loves, and I will tell you, and again, I don't want to piss people off, but I do think that when you have a certain time where things aren't going well, you just come off of a Brian Michael Bendis nonsense with Superman and the identity reveal and all that crap. And then Phillip Kennedy Johnson comes in and seemingly loves Superman and does a good job. You tend to elevate things a little more. And I understand that people love it. But when I hear people like, it is the best Superman story ever, I disagree. Because there were points where it gets a little wonky. It gets a little meandering. And that's what Phillip Kennedy Johnson does. He loves to deal with lore. He loves to deep dive with stuff. He does it in books, even the Hulk and stuff like that. So when you have all this going on, when it mentions Olgrun, I don't want any parts of that. I really don't. So that's one of the theories. That's my theory about this. And I'll give you the theories. I'll give you, number one, what one guy told me, and it is an editor at DC. He is not editing these books or anything. And he said he heard some whispers that actually this is being resolicited to give a solid to Phillip Kennedy Johnson, because the initial, it's only been, I think, on pre-order for just a couple weeks or whatever. But they figured, wait a second, we have a Superman movie coming out. Why not have this out during that? Why not have it come out in July, August, not in March? And that seems smart to me. That makes sense. And that's one of the things that this guy had heard, that everything's fine. It's just they want to get the timing better with the movie, get some hype going. Another person told me that what they heard was that DC has a lot of other things planned for that time when the movie comes out, and Philip Kennedy Johnson might be involved with that, so they don't want him to have too many books, so they're pulling this back. And he also heard of, there's a lot of rumors going around. I don't even know if these are anything they really heard or they're still selling me something here, but they also heard that it's possible that Philip Kennedy Johnson will eventually come back as a superstar for Action Comics, and then that will lead into this Adventures of Superman, the Book of L. So then it would combine the idea of having hype from the movie, combined with being on Action Comics, one bigger book, and then into Adventures of Superman, Book of L. So that's, both of those are pretty cool in the idea of they're trying to help him out. And I think he does need that. And when I ended up doing the video about him, should have gotten a number one with the Batman and Robin, somebody did mention in the comments that he was on some interview and said, in fact, that he begged them to get a new number one because he thought he needed it as well. So maybe this is them saying we done messed up. Because if they're reading it, I mean, seriously, who knows if they sit there? It's a lot of people counting money and things like that. But if they legitimately, and I'm talking the higher ups, they actually read the books and say, you know what, this deserves better. That Batman and Robin. So maybe they're giving them a solid with that. I think maybe, just maybe, they kind of go to Philip Kennedy Johnson saying, listen, I know you love this Olgrun stuff. You float your boat. And the people who are real big fans of yours probably do, but we need more people than that. Your books don't sell great. You have a loyal fandom, I guess, but there's not enough of them. And boy, Olgrun in a book that's a number one that you want to have people, and the fun aspect of that House of L stuff is going to get just avalanched on by Olgrun. I don't think that anything with Olgrun, including that's what happened with War Journal, is that stuff is impenetrable for new readers, especially new readers. And some, readers who read everything like me. I'm a dummy, but boy, that stuff just gets convoluted in my head. I just want to have fun. And I think that this is a book that should be all about fun with the House of L stuff. So we'll end up seeing what is really the reason. Hopefully it is resolicited. I think it will be. I think it will be probably around June, July, August, somewhere there to go and coincide with the movie so people get some hype, while somebody will probably be in the comments and saying, well, actually, the movies don't really carry over to the comics, but you hope they will. You always hope. Everybody has hope. And you know what? The S, it stands for hope. Unless you're in the absolute universe, it stands for like servitude or something. And that's another video right there. But thanks, everybody, for listening. Please tell me what you think if you're looking forward to Adventures of Superman, the Book of L, if you think there's another reason, if you're, bummed out, if you're like, well, whatever. Because I even saw some comments initially on Bleeding Cool when this was reported, and it's kind of half and half. Some people are like, screw that. I don't even want that. So, there's always people. There's always people yelling and stuff like that. But let me know what you think. Again, hopefully it comes out. But thanks, everybody, and I'll talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.